डॉक्टर रघुनाथ माशेलकर साहब, श्री राजेश टोपे, श्री पद्माकर वाल्वी, श्री मोहन सिंह राजपाल, मिस्टर लियाम बर्न्स, श्री मधु गौड़ यास्की, श्री BK पिपारलिया, डॉक्टर VN कराड़, राहुल कराड़, यहाँ पर उपस्थित पूरे देश भर से अलग अलग संस्थानों से आए हुए छात्र नेता भाइयों और बहनों, सबसे पहले तो मैं राहुल कराड़ जी को और तमाम इनके संगठन के लोगों को बधाई देना चाहता हूं। इन्होंने बहुत बहादुरी का कार्य किया। बहादुरी का कार्य, ये शब्द मैं बहादुरी इसलिए इस्तेमाल कर रहा हूं कि एक ऐसे समय में जहां पर राजनेताओं को लेकर के लोगों के मन में संशय है, एक ऐसे समय में, एक ऐसे युग में जहां भारत के अंदर उनके परिवार का कोई व्यक्ति राजनीति में जाए या ना जाए, इसको लेकर के अक्सर माता पिता के मन में दुविधा रहती है। ऐसे समय में आपने एक कदम उठाया है कि भारत में किस प्रकार से युवाओं को राजनीति के अंदर आने के लिए प्रेरित किया जाए और प्रशिक्षित किया जाए। ये वाकई बहुत बहादुरी का कार्य है। मैं सोच रहा था कि नंदिता दास यहां पर अगर रहती तो कुछ मांगे मुझे उनसे भी करनी थी। बहुत सारी मांगे तो लोग राजनेताओं से और मंत्रियों से करते हैं, लेकिन एक मंत्री और एक राजनेता होने के नाते कुछ मांग मुझे उनसे भी करनी थी, क्योंकि मंच पर वो बॉलीवुड की एक रिप्रेजेंटेटिव के रूप में, एक डायरेक्टर के रूप में यहां पर उपस्थित थी। अगर सामाजिक सोच को कहीं कोई अगर सही रूप में प्रतिबिंबित करता है तो वो बॉलीवुड के चलचित्र की पटकथाएं होती। और कोई भी बॉलीवुड का अगर फिल्मों को उठा करके देखें, जो कि अगर पिछले दिनों में, पिछले सालों में बनी है, तो अगर उसके अंदर कोई खलनायक अगर चुनना होता है तो टोपी पहना करके एक राजनेता को खलनायक चुना जाता है। उससे बेहतर उनको कोई खलनायक नहीं मिलता है। तो यह सवाल मुझे उनसे पूछना था कि ऐसा परिवर्तन क्यों हुआ। हम देखते हैं कि हमारे चारों ओर प्रगति हो रही है, विकास भी हो रहा है, हम सब लोगों के जीवन में सुधार भी हो रहा है, फिर ऐसा क्यों? एक ऐसा समय था, हम सब के सब लोग पुरानी पिक्चरों को देखते हैं तो वहां पर नायक बहुत सारे पिक्चरों के अंदर राजनेता होते थे। मुझे अभी भी याद है, एक फिल्म थी लीडर, दिलीप कुमार साहब उसके अंदर नेता थे और वो लीडर थे। उसका गाना अभी भी याद है, विजंती माला के साथ में मिलकर के बॉम्बे के मैदान में दोनों का मिलकर के एक गाना हुआ था और वो पिक्चर के अंदर था। हम लोग अभी तक उसको याद रखते हैं कि अपनी आजादी को हम हरगिज मिटा सकते नहीं, सर कटा सकते हैं लेकिन सर झुका सकते नहीं। वो लीडर का गाना था और एक राजनेता के मुंह से वो गाना निकला था। मैं समझता हूं कि ये सही भावना अगर कोई है तो उस सही भावना को भी प्रतिबिंबित करना चाहिए। लेकिन इसके पीछे कारण है और उस कारण के पीछे बहुत सारे लोगों का दोष है, उसको भी हम लोगों को ध्यान में रखना चाहिए। अगर हम आज पूरे के पूरे देश के लोकतंत्र की व्यवस्था को अगर देखें तो मैं समझता हूं कि इसके 3 बिंदु। एक संस्थागत ढांचे के रूप में हमारा संसद है, एक प्रक्रिया के रूप में डेमोक्रेसी है और एक कारक के रूप में राजनीति है और कर्ता के रूप में राजनीतिज्ञ। ये चारों के चारों अलग अलग कोण हैं जो कि हमारे पूरे के पूरे देश की राजनीति को किस प्रकार से चले उसका निर्धारण करते हैं। लेकिन इसके साथ में हम लोगों को यह भी देखना चाहिए, यह फर्क हम लोगों को उसमें करना चाहिए कि एक तरफ हमारे राजनीतिक कार्यकर्ता हैं, सबसे नीचे पायदान पे राजनीतिज्ञ हैं, उसके ऊपर के पायदान के ऊपर अगर हम जाएं तो जनप्रतिनिधि हैं और जनप्रतिनिधि के ऊपर लीडर। अक्सर हम इन चारों को हम मिला देते हैं और हम भूल जाते हैं कि लीडर कौन है, जनप्रतिनिधि कौन है, राजनीतिक कार्यकर्ता कौन है, और हम एक को देख करके सब लोगों के के बारे में अपना मत हम लोग बना बैठते हैं। मेरे दादा और मेरी दादी और मेरे परदादा तीनों के तीनों स्वतंत्रता सेनानी थे। मुझे अभी भी याद आते हैं बचपन के अपने वो दिन जब मैं अपने बाकी और भाई बहनों के साथ, कजन्स के साथ में मिलकर के हम लोग अपनी दादी के पास में जाते थे। जब वो अच्छे मूड में होती थी, पांव छूते थे, वो बटुआ खोलती थी और 4 आने हमारे हाथ में रखती थी और सर पे हाथ रख करके कहती थी कि बड़े होकर लीडर बनेगा। बड़े होकर के लीडर बनेगा उस वक्त आशीर्वाद था। ये नहीं कहते थे कि बड़े होकर मंत्री बनेगा, ये नहीं कहते थे कि बड़े होकर के विधायक बनेगा या बड़े होकर के सांसद बनेगा, ये कहते थे बड़े होकर के लीडर बनेगा। उस वक्त उन्होंने जो बातें कही, अब कई बार मैं सोचता हूं कि यह सब बातें उनके मुंह से जो निकलती थी, क्यों निकलती थी? क्योंकि वो स्वतंत्रता सेनानी थे। जिस वक्त उन्होंने स्वतंत्रता की लड़ाई लड़ी, तो उस वक्त उन्होंने स्वतंत्रता की लड़ाई में कांग्रेस के नेताओं को देखा जो सामाजिक परिवर्तन के अंदर लगे रहते थे, जिन्होंने भारत के लिए अंग्रेजों के खिलाफ लड़ाई लड़ी। उस वक्त सोच भी नहीं कोई सकता था कि कोई मंत्री बन सकता है, कोई विधायक बन सकता है, कोई सांसद बन सकता है, क्योंकि यह कंसेप्ट उनके दिमाग में था ही नहीं। इसलिए उनके मुंह से कभी भी आशीर्वाद निकलता था तो निकलता था कि बड़े होकर के लीडर बनेगा। कभी भी मंत्री, सांसद या विधायक बनने का आशीर्वाद उनके मन से नहीं निकलता था। इस वजह से जब आप, कराड़ साहब, ये स्कूल आप शुरू कर रहे हैं जिसमें आप राजनीति का प्रशिक्षण देते हैं, तो राजनीति का अगर आप संधि विच्छेद करें तो उसके 2 मतलब निकल सकते हैं। राजनीति, अब राजनीति का मतलब जो विशुद्ध जनप्रतिनिधि बनना चाहते हैं, जो केवल चुनाव लड़कर के जीतना चाहते हैं किसी भी कीमत पे, उनके लिए राजनीति का मतलब है राज में आने की नीति। लेकिन जो लीडर बनना चाहते हैं, जो देश को और समाज को दिशा देना चाहते हैं, उनके लिए राजनीति का मतलब है राज में आने के बाद कार्य करने की नीति। तो मैं ये उम्मीद करता हूं कि यहां पे जो हमारे जितने भी छात्र नेता पूरे देश भर से यहां पर आए हैं और जितने भी लोगों को आप यहां पर प्रशिक्षण देते हैं, देंगे, उनको राजनीति में राज में आने की नीति ना सिखाएं। राजनीति का मतलब उनको राज में आने के बाद में उनको काम करने की नीति सिखाएं। यह राजनीति का असली मतलब है। तभी मैं समझूंगा कि सही मायने में प्रशिक्षित होकर के हमारे युवा नेता यहां से जा रहे हैं। आज हम लोग लोकतंत्र का जब अर्थ निकालते हैं तो एक अवधारणा है। लोकतंत्र का मतलब हम निकाल देते हैं कि राजनीतिक दल, चुनाव, संसद, मंत्री और ये सब हो गए, ये सब स्थापित हो गए तो लोकतंत्र स्थापित हो गया। बहुत सारे ऐसे देश हैं जहां पर सैन्य शासक भी इसी प्रकार से लोकतंत्र स्थापित करके काबिज हो जाते हैं और कहते हैं हम तो चुने हुए प्रतिनिधि हैं, हम तो लोकतंत्र से जीत करके आए। लेकिन सही मायने में अगर लोकतंत्र का मतलब अगर निकालना है तो हमारे को लोकतंत्र का मतलब समझना पड़ेगा कि लोकतंत्र से मतलब हमारा क्या है। निष्पक्ष चुनाव, संसद, राजनीतिक दल तो केवल साधन है और साध्य हमारा है निर्बाध्य सार्वजनिक चर्चा एवं जनसंवाद। जहां पर जिस भी राज्य के अंदर, जिस भी देश के अंदर, लोकतंत्र के अंदर जनसंवाद नहीं होगा, जहां पर निर्बाध्य रूप से सामाजिक चर्चा, सार्वजनिक चर्चा के लिए वातावरण नहीं होगा, वहां पर लोकतंत्र नहीं हो सकता। लोकतंत्र को अगर सही मायने में अगर कह सकते हैं तो लोकतंत्र सार्वजनिक चर्चा द्वारा शासन को ही हम लोकतंत्र कहेंगे और इसके अलावा लोकतंत्र का कोई मतलब नहीं है। जहां पर सार्वजनिक चर्चा नहीं हो सकती वहां पे लोकतंत्र नहीं हो सकता। और इसलिए फिर से मैं आपको बधाई देता हूं कि छात्र संसद जो आपने बनाया है ये सार्वजनिक चर्चा का मंच है और यहां से लोकतंत्र की ज्योति आगे बढ़ेगी और यहां से लोकतंत्र की सीख लेकर के यहां से हमारे छात्र आगे जाएंगे। यही सार्वजनिक चर्चा का स्थान है और यही सही मायने में लोकतंत्र है। दूसरे लोकतंत्र इससे नीचे हैं, वो जरूरी है लेकिन वो साध्य नहीं है, वो साधन है। इस साध्य को पाने के लिए इस चीज को हमको समझना चाहिए। आज हम लोगों को यह भी देखना चाहिए कि भारत के अंदर हम लोगों का लोकतंत्र का इतिहास क्या है। बहुत सारे लोग यहां पर आकर के कहते हैं कि लोकतंत्र पाश्चात्य देशों के एक देन भारत को है। बहुत सारे लोग ये कहते हैं कि अंग्रेजों के शासन के बाद में भारत के अंदर लोकतंत्र आया, डेमोक्रेसी आई। लेकिन अगर लोकतंत्र का मतलब अगर हम जनसंवाद निकालें तो भारत के अंदर जनसंवाद हजारों साल से पुराना है। अगर भारत के अंदर जनसंवाद का इतिहास अगर हम निकालें तो 4वीं शताब्दी ईसा पूर्व जब राजा सिकंदर यहां पर देश के अंदर आए थे तो उन्होंने जैन साधुओं के साथ में जब जनसंवाद किया तो जैन साधुओं से उन्होंने कहा कि आप मेरी रिस्पेक्ट, मेरे यहां पर इज्जत क्यों नहीं दे रहे? तो जैन साधुओं ने उसको कहा कि प्रत्येक व्यक्ति का पृथ्वी पर उतना ही अधिकार है जिस पर 2 पांव रखे गए। आपकी मृत्यु पश्चात आपका अधिकार मात्र उतनी ही जमीन पर रहेगा जिसके नीचे आप दफन हैं। यह उस संवाद का नतीजा था और राजा सिकंदर को संवाद के माध्यम से जैन साधुओं ने 4वीं शताब्दी ईसा पूर्व कहा। हम लोग राज्य परिवर्तन की बात करते हैं लोकतंत्र के माध्यम से, हम लोग सत्ता परिवर्तन की बात करते हैं लोकतंत्र के माध्यम से। भारत के अंदर इतिहास रहा है, यहां पे धर्म परिवर्तन लोकतंत्र के माध्यम से हुआ है। अगर इतिहास उठा करके देखें तो जो बौद्ध, जितने भी यहां पर बौद्ध बने, तो महात्मा बुद्ध की मृत्यु के पश्चात 4 बौद्धिक महासम्मेलन जनसंवाद के रूप में भारत में हुए और उन चारों बौद्धिक महासम्मेलनों के अंदर जनसंवाद हुआ। पहला राजगढ़ में हुआ, फिर वैशाली में, पाटलिपुत्र में और कश्मीर में। इन चारों जगह के ऊपर जब जनसंवाद हुआ तो उसके बाद में बड़ी संख्या में धर्म परिवर्तित हुए और लोग बुद्धिस्ट बन गए। उसके बाद 4वीं और 5वीं शताब्दी में फिर जनसंवाद हुआ जब जगत गुरु शंकराचार्य आए और वापस सब लोगों को एक लोकतांत्रिक तरीके से, मैं कहूंगा एक जन संवाद के माध्यम से वापस सबके सब लोग हिंदू धर्म में परिवर्तित हो गए। यह भारत का इतिहास है। भारत ने पाश्चात्य देशों को लोकतंत्र और जन संवाद दिया है, ना कि भारत को वहां से मिला है। यह मैं कहना चाहता हूं, जिस पे हम लोगों को गर्व होना चाहिए। और इसीलिए जो लोग आज के जमाने में बहुत उम्मीद करते हैं कि भारत में कभी क्रांति आ जाएगी, भारत में कभी लहू बहेगा, लोग सड़कों के ऊपर बाहर निकलेंगे, सत्ता अपने हाथ में काबिज कर लेंगे। क्रांति रूस में आई, क्रांति फ्रांस में आई, भारत में भी स्वतंत्रता का आंदोलन हुआ। क्रांति भारत के अंदर नहीं हुई। 1857 के अंदर जो हुआ वो म्यूटनी थी। क्रांति भारत के अंदर इसलिए नहीं कभी भी आ सकती क्योंकि भारत के अंदर भारत के लोग, भारत के निवासी हजारों हजार साल से इस जनसंवाद के अंदर विश्वास रखते हैं। और इसीलिए भारत के अंदर मैं कहूंगा कि हमारे संस्कृति में, हमारे संस्कारों के अंदर लोकतंत्र घुसा हुआ है। यह भारत की मजबूती है जिसकी वजह से भारत आगे विश्व के अंदर एक स्थान लेने के लिए जा रहा है। मैं अंत में फिर से धन्यवाद करना चाहूंगा राहुल भाई आपका, डॉक्टर कराड़ साहब का, या आपने मुझे मौका दिया। भारत सरकार का युवा मंत्रालय, खेल मंत्रालय पूरी तरीके से आपके साथ में है। आपने जिस कार्य का बीड़ा उठाया है, मैं समझता हूं आज के समय में भारत के अंदर इस कार्य को उठाने की जरूरत है। हमारे यहाँ पे भारत के अंदर 120 करोड़ चमकती हुई आंखें हैं जो कि हम लोगों की तरफ देख रही हैं। इसमें से 84 करोड़ चमकती हुई आंखें 35 वर्ष से कम उम्र की हैं जो भारत की युवा हैं। आप उनको नेतृत्व प्रदान करने का कार्य कर रहे हैं। हम पूरी तरीके से आपके साथ हैं, भारत सरकार पूरी तरीके से आपके साथ है। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
Ladies and gentlemen, dear students, I'm delighted to address young people and students on the occasion of this second Indian Student Parliament, Bharatiya Chhatra Sansad. Let me commend this initiative of the MIT School of Government in Pune, India. Everywhere I travel, I'm inspired by the energy and the commitment for change that comes from young people. Young people are 1 billion strong in the world. They carry 1 billion hopes for a better future. The year 2011 will be remembered as the year young people decided to take the torch of human dignity and speak up for human rights. It resulted in an unprecedented movement for democracy, justice, and peace. Young people must be considered as actors for change and not simply as beneficiaries. They are already changing the world. They are reinventing culture and the media. It is the role of UNESCO to give them the skills and tools to do so in ways that strengthen the ties between cultures and that protect human rights and fundamental freedoms. Quality education is the starting point. If we combine the hopes of youth with a quality education, there is nothing we cannot achieve. This is why UNESCO will continue to fight to provide each and every girl and boy with everything they need to share their ideas and act on them. Last October, the UNESCO Youth Forum gave young people from all member states a platform to share experiences and to forge new ideas together. Today, the second Indian Students' Parliament is another unique opportunity for you to debate ideas in a democratic spirit, to envision ways to make the world a better place. Be imaginative, generous, and ambitious. As your great Mahatma Gandhi put it, be the change you want to see in the world. You are not only the leaders of tomorrow, you are the leading actors of today. I wish you every success in your discussions.
It is a great pleasure for me to be addressing you from New York through video conferencing mode. I thank you for this opportunity to join you. The Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, has asked me to deliver his personal message to all of you. I shall now straight away proceed to read his message. Namaste. I am pleased to send greetings to all participants at the second Indian Student Parliament. India has a special place in my heart. My first diplomatic posting was in New Delhi 30 years ago. I have been back many times since then. Whenever I visit, I am even more impressed by India's great development. Your country continues to consolidate its democracy. India is a living example of unity in diversity. The economy is growing, and India is a leader in technology. I hope you continue to advance and move steadily ahead. We live in a time of great challenge and change. The world faces complex threats: unemployment, inequality, environmental degradation. These common problems demand shared solutions. At the United Nations, we are focused on 5 particular imperatives: achieving sustainable development, preventing conflicts, standing up for democracy and human rights, supporting countries in transition, and working for the empowerment of women and young people. These are not only imperatives, they are also opportunities. All of you can help seize these opportunities in India and around the world. This student parliament is a chance to start tackling some of the toughest issues of our day. After you leave this conference premises, I hope you will stay in touch with each other. Push for progress. Mobilize for change. Advocate for what you know is right. Join forces with youth from around the world. And please, bring your energy and your ideas to the United Nations. We need you in our quest for peace, development, and human rights worldwide. Let me recall here the words of the great Indian poet Rabindranath Tagore. He said, "I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy." I wish you great success at this Parliament, and I count on your engagement long into the future. This concludes the Secretary General's message. मैं अपने तरफ से इस द्वितीय भारतीय छात्र संसद को अपनी हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं प्रदान करता हूं। धन्यवाद और नमस्ते।
The most eminent, most distinguished dais that we have today, and my young friends, you are just referred to as leaders of tomorrow, but leading actors of today. I salute you before I begin my lecture. I salute you because you are going to be the builder of this great nation, an India of the 21st century, which will have its rightful position in the Community of Nations, which is going to be right up there. That is your responsibility. I want to begin by saying that we have today a changing India. Just 10 years ago, I remember this was being looked at, India was being looked at as a third world country. Today people refer to us as probably the third most powerful country in the world, potentially the third most powerful country. And that transition, ladies and gentlemen, has taken place in just a decade with the kind of economic growth that one has seen. And if we maintain that, we'll be an affluent nation within a generation, in your generation. I wouldn't be there to see that in 30 years down the line, but you would, your children would see the benefit of where India would be. I remember when I see this particular gathering, my mind goes back to 3rd January 2000. What happened on 3rd January 2000? We had the Indian Science Congress, and there was an audience exactly like this. Incredible. We had the then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji on the dais. We had Nobel laureates. We had Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam sitting in the audience. It was an incredible scene, more than 5,000 scientists around the country. And that was the beginning of the new millennium. So I remember talking about a new Panchasheel for the new millennium. Child-centered education, woman-centered family, human-centered development, knowledge-centered society, and innovation-centered India as the 5 principles on which we will move. And I painted a picture of my India, the new India. And I remember ending by saying this. I said, and that's a continuation for me because I'm seeing such audience for the first time in 12 years in Pune. So it's a continuation. What I ended there, I like to begin my speech with here. I ended by saying, the next century will belong to India, which will become a unique intellectual and economic power to reckon with, recapturing all its glory, which it had in the millennia gone by. And I believe this will happen as this dawn of the new millennium turns into a morning, and what a glorious morning it would be for my India. That was the wish that I had expressed 12 years ago. And my young friends, this is beginning to happen. The expectation is changing, but our performance is changing. This is a book called Reinventing India. Rahul has printed 7,000 copies of this. This book is written by me. And each one of you will have a copy of this book tomorrow. Each one of you. I could have titled this book, by the way, as not reinventing India. I could have titled it, Yes We Can. This book is about Yes We Can. Every page of this is filled with enthusiasm, optimism that yes, India can do it. And I will very shortly explain to you why people call me a dangerous optimist. Durdamya Ashavadi. That's what they call me. I'm very hot on India. I'm very passionate about India. I believe in India's future, and it's going to be a great future. India is growing, that's without doubt. But as Sam said a little earlier, it has to be an inclusive growth, because we have to make sure that we include the excluded. There are 800 million people in India who live live for less than $2 a day. How do we ensure that we give access to everything? It is not so much the inequality, it is inequality of access. Access of education, access to health, access to drinking water, access to sanitation, access to communication. That's what matters. And how do you actually do that? That is going to be a great challenge. And in this, my friends, what is going to be most important? I was listening to our beloved Prime Minister's speech on the New Year Eve, and what he said in his speech was remarkable. I will just read it out to you. He said, I was born into a family of modest means, in a village without a doctor or a teacher, no hospital, no school, no electricity. I had to walk miles every day to go to a school, but I persevered. And I was fortunate to be able to secure a high school education and then go on to higher education. It is this access to education that transformed my life and gave me new opportunities which others with my background could not dream of. So many times when people ask me what should be India's priority number 1, priority number 2, priority number 3, I say priority number 1 is education, priority number 2 is education, priority number 3 is education. And let me explain to you why I say this by recalling the 1st October last year. What happened on 1st October? We have this American Academy of Arts and Science. It was established in 1780 by Benjamin Franklin and George Washington. To get elected to that academy is a great, great, great honor. There are more than 200 Nobel laureates, Pulitzer Prize winners who have been elected to that. If you look at the list of fellows who have been elected, from Winston Churchill to Charles Darwin, from Einstein to Nelson Mandela, it's an incredible list of people. From 1780, in last 230 years, you might say, how many Indians have been elected? Only 7. Out of these 7, the 6th and the 7th Indian signed in the book, in which everybody signs, by the way, when you get elected, and there is what is called as an investiture ceremony in Boston. And on that day, something terrific happened, something wonderful happened. The 6th Indian signed in that. You know who was the 6th Indian? Ratan Tata. And the 7th Indian signed in that. You know who was the 7th Indian? Me. Now that's not so important. What is important is the following. We signed on the same page, one after the other, on the same day. But there is something very interesting, because around 50 years ago, I remember my childhood. I was born in a very poor family. My father died when I was 6. My widowed mother, she was illiterate. She brought me up by doing manual work. I went barefoot until I was 12. I studied under street lights. After my 11th standard, which used to be the SSC, not like now, where we have 10th standard and 12th standard, I'm talking about 1960, I remember My poor mother could not afford my education. I had stood 11th, by the way, among 135,000 students in state of Maharashtra in the board. But still, I could not afford education. So I was going to leave my education, and then came Sir Dorab Tata Trust. And they gave me 60 rupees per month. For how many years? 6 years. 60 rupees was a big money in 60s, by the way. If somebody had told me in 1960 that 50 years down the line, you, a poor Tata scholar, and Ratan Tata, the head of the family of Tatas, will sign on the same page I would have said impossible. I would have said impossible, you know. But it became possible. Why? Exactly because what Dr. Manmohan Singh, our Prime Minister, says here, it was access to education. So my friends, this access to education, access to health, access to communication is so important. How do we remove this access inequality? On the other day I was driving and I saw a little girl, just 5 to 6 years, from a slum with tattered clothes on a mobile, talking to her friend, laughing away. And I felt so good. I stopped the car and just watched her, because she was having access to something we would not have imagined. How did it make it possible? That is bringing in a major revolution, as you say. And therefore, this inclusive growth, inclusive innovation is going to be the key. Innovation is going to be the key. Our Prime Minister has declared this decade as a decade of innovation, because in innovation, what do? You discard the past. You say, no, this is not on. I'm going to do something different, which will make a difference to my life. In fact, President Obama has said education and innovation are the currency for the 21st century. I would go beyond and say education in innovation and innovation in education are going to be the key. And there is one thing wonderful about innovation. Innovator, they say, is one who does not know that it cannot be done. We have 7,000 young people here who do not know it cannot be done. If we create 1.2 billion Indians who do not know it cannot be done, you can see, if we start making impossible possible, where will this India be? That particular confidence is something we need to have amongst ourselves. And impossible can be made possible because somebody who's studied under street lights is speaking in front of you. How do we give opportunities to all those Mashakkas? I would make just 2 points, because I know for 3 hours you have been sitting, so I will not go very long, just a couple of minutes more. I think one of the things we need to really have is impatience. We have to start becoming impatient. You know, we have to become impatient against corruption. We have to become impatient against injustice, against inequality, against lethargy. We have to become impatient against mediocrity. It's extremely important. We are losing time. I mean, there are court cases. I was reading on the other day in Times of India, a Sunday article by Swami Ankleshwar Iyer, where he talks about the murder of a politician that took place 37 years ago. And a 27-year young man was arrested at that time. That young man in jail has become 64-year-old, and still the case has not been resolved. The case is going on. This is not done. We need reforms in everything that we talk about. We have to become impatient. Time is not on our side. Please understand that, basically. And you have to become impatient. And that's why I enjoyed seeing the impatience against corruption that was evident in sort of recent months. How do we become positively impatient? We must become a little angry in a positive way. I remember I was a member of Science Advisory Council to the Prime Minister in Mr. Rajiv Gandhi's time. And he one day asked us, you know, what are we good at? And one of us said, we are good at this. What can we do with this? And we said, supercomputer has been denied to us by United States of America, and we can do it ourselves. It doesn't matter, we don't need America. So he said, what will it take? $10 million, 3 years. We created in Center for Development of Advanced Computation, a great center under Dr. Vijay Bhatkar, and next thing was Param. We created a Param supercomputer. And we exported it. We exported it to countries like Russia, basically. And I still remember Washington Post had created a news item where they said, Angry India does it. You know what? Angry India does it because India, having been angered for having been denied the supercomputer, created its own. I have often said, why is India not angry every day? In other words, the point I'm trying to make is that this impatience, this anger, in the most positive way, to build our new India, we are in a hurry. I think that is one message I would like to leave you with. I like to end by saying, to me, what is most important is one India. We have huge diversity. How do we have unity in diversity? To me, Team India, extremely important. I was just mentioning to Nandita, was sitting next to me. Somebody was joking on the other day. He asked me, what is 1 Japanese plus 1 Japanese? I said 2. He said, wrong, it is 11. And then he asked me, what is 1 Indian plus 1 Indian? I said 2. He said, no, wrong, it is 0, because they neutralize each other. That is not on. We are great solo players. We have to play orchestra all together. As a Team India, as 120 crore people, there is no substitute to that. And ladies and gentlemen, my young friends, finally, we must learn the meaning of My India. I'll end by just reading again the last line, where I say, and what a glorious morning it would be for my India. You know, when you get this book and when you read the speech, you'll find that in the last 2 paragraphs, I have said My India around 5 times. And I remember when I gave this speech on 3rd January 2000, it was broadcast all around the country. And this My India is something that got echoed all around. And I got phone calls from some young people, said, sir, you said My India at least 4 to 5 times when you were ending your speech. I said, yes. That gives me an idea. If each one of us gets up in the morning and says My India 5 times, and each one of us before going to sleep says My India 5 times, but while saying that, he asks or she asks herself or himself, what did I do not only just for myself, but for my India? And if 120 crore Indians do it every day, you know what difference it will make? My India. I think the new India that we are building has to be Svidya India, knowledge-centered India. It has to be Santulit India, balanced India, development without destruction. It has to be Shusasit India. We need great governance. We must have intolerance against bad governance, no question. We must have Samruddha India. We have to become affluent. We will become affluent. But we have to have Sarva Sukhi India. We're not just few Indians, but every Indian is happy. Happiness is what matters. People are saying, no, it is not gross national product, it is gross national happiness that matters. Sarva Sukhi. Every Indian has to be happy. And that can happen if each one of us say, My India every day. I hope you will start it tomorrow. But as they say, Shubhasya Shighram. Why do we have to wait for tomorrow? Why don't we start doing it now? So what I will do is, let us make a start. I will say My India and you will repeat after me and we'll say it 5 times. Okay? That's the beginning. My India! My India! My India! My India! My India! Thank you.
We, the student leaders of India, assembled here in the 2nd Bharatiya Chhatra Sansad, Pune, India, hereby unanimously resolve and appeal to the Government of India to formulate the policies that seek to widen the representation of the youth in all the democratic institutions, from Gram Panchayat to Parliament, considering the fact that more than half of India is below 30 years of age.
To support resolution type SLPY, to oppose type SLPN, and send it to 9212148888.
आज का जो हमारा रेजोल्यूशन रहा है हम यहाँ स्क्रीन पे देख सकते हैं।
Fantastic. That is yes for 80.56%.
It's my indeed honor to propose a vote of thanks to the galaxy of the stars in various fields sitting on the dais and off the dais. I propose a vote of thanks to Honorable Shri Ajay Makhan, Shri Rajesh Tope, Shri Padmakar Valvi, Dr. Raghunath Mashekar, Shri Mohan Singh Rajpal, Srimati Nandita Das, Shri Madhu Gowda Yakshi, and Mr. Piparia, who are on the dais. I also propose a vote of thanks to Padma Vibhushan, Mr. R.K. Lakshman. He came here and accepted the award. I also propose a vote of thanks to Her Excellency, President of India, Srimati Pratibha Patil, Prime Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh, Ms. Irina Bokova, who had reached us through the media, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General, and the message which was read by Mr. Nambiar and Mr. Malhotra, who helped us in getting this message, and Sri Sam Pitroda, who reached us through electronic media. I also thank especially to Mr. Leon Burns, who has come all the way from UK, and as he said that his National Student Union has completed 91 years. So you can imagine, in year 3000, this Bharat Chhatra Sansad would have completed 91 years, and where we would have been. And I thank you all for being a part of this pioneer of this Bharat Chhatra Sansad. I also thank the media, electronic and press, and all other guests, those who are here. Thank you very much. I also thank especially to Bank of Maharashtra for helping us in this particular first inaugural session. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
माता की
भारतीय छात्र